From the 1970s to the mid 1980s, one artist turned an entire nation into a bunch of Mary Jane smoking super freaks. Rick James. I'm one bad comic, and fuck your couch. What's up, Vinyl Heads? Welcome to another episode of Vinyl Snacks. I'm your host, One Bad Comic. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. I want to give a big thanks to everybody that's liking, commenting. Comment on my videos if you like the album, what you don't like about the album. I want to keep engaging with you guys. It lets me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. So I truly appreciate all the love and support that you guys are giving me on this little show that I have. I hope you guys had a great New Year's Eve. I hope you guys had fun and got to hang out with your family. Like, my family's in El Paso, so I didn't really get to see them. But I did get to hang out with some of my friends. And guess what we did? We partied hard. We partied hard. And nobody parties harder than this guy right here. Rick James, baby, which is why I chose this specific album. Rick James Street Songs. I don't know much about Rick James. I was able to look up some stuff, so it was an interesting look into a fascinating artist. Rick James was actually born James Ambrose Johnson on February 1st, 1948. He was actually raised in Buffalo, New York, and was very musically inclined at a very young age. He started a few rock bands or a few bands in his teens. After that, he grew up and then ended up joining the U.S. Navy Reserve because he was trying to avoid the draft. So when he did that, he ended up pretty much abandoning his service and went MIA from the service, and he ended up moving to Toronto, Canada, of all places. And in Toronto, Canada, he created another group called Mynah Birds, right? So he has this band after he leaves so they're looking for him. The military's like, where's James at? He's gone, and he's creating these bands. He signs on to Motown Records during this and he creates some success with the band. Later that year, in 1966, the military finds out where he's at because he's singing, right? And they arrest him, dude. They arrest him, and he goes to jail for 1 year. So he has to pay his dues for abandoning his military service or whatever it is. So he goes to jail, comes back out, and continues his path along as a musical artist. What's up, Vinyl Heads? I hope you guys are enjoying this episode of Vinyl Snacks. Quick announcement, January 6th, I'm going to be in Canyon Lake at Goofy's Comedy Club with my friend John Polar Bear Gonzalez. Make sure you guys check that show out. Don't miss out on it. Get your tickets at polarbearcomedy.net. It's going to be a hoot. Don't miss it. Also, if you're a business and you're trying to get your word out, come hit me up. I'm looking for sponsors. I have some open slots right now, so make sure you guys hit me up at onebadcomic01@gmail.com. Let's work together, baby. Peace. It wasn't until he has some other bands after that, but it wasn't until 1977 Rick James signs with a record label called Gordy Records, and it's under the same. It's still under the Motown establishment. But it's when he releases his 1977 album, Come and Get It, which has probably one of the coolest songs we all know, the song called Mary Jane, which we all love, obviously. I'm in love with Mary Jane, Mary Jane. So, yeah, he comes out with that one and also another song called Super Freak, which just hits the charts running. And he becomes a huge success after that album. After that, he then releases in 1981 this record right here, Rick James Street Songs, which also hits. And this becomes his most successful album, which includes some of the best songs that we all know, which has Give It To Me, Baby. give it to. So a lot of his songs pretty much about getting high and like banging chicks. So I guess at that time, which still to this day, but it was definitely hitting. So that's a pretty interesting, and I've never really heard the entire. I've had the record, but I haven't really given it a listen. And oh my God, guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this entire album from beginning to end. It's literally a great, great album. Like, I was really, really impressed with it. Plus, I love the way his style is. He was very unique looking guy. Like, he had this leather. The cover of it has him like all dressed up in this with these red leather boots. Got a cool guitar. I mean, the guy's killing it. On the back is pretty much just the title of the songs that he has. Like I said, one of the songs that I recommend that I probably liked the most was one called Ghetto Life. Ghetto Life was probably the one that it's a real cool song. Pretty much talks about living in the ghetto, dude, and it's pretty much about him like hanging out with his friends and then banging a girl with pigtails. So I thought that was pretty neat. But there's also some other good ones. Fire and Desire was also pretty sweet. Me and my producer liked that one. We liked that one a lot. So that was a pretty cool songs that I highly recommend you guys check out. His album, his career pretty much peaked in 1985, which a lot of people don't really know, but he was still doing things even though his career wasn't as mainstream after these two albums, but he was very, very talented. He produced and wrote songs for a lot of artists like Eddie Murphy, Smokey Robinson, The Temptations. So he was heavily involved with a lot of great musicians, producing and recording songs for them. After that, he started going through a lot. He had always had issues, but he ended up having a lot of more problems with his criminal life that came with it. He was heavily involved in drugs, and he ended up getting arrested for kidnapping and assaulting two women. He goes to jail and ends up in Folsom Prison, of all places. So I believe he did some time there, a couple of years for those crimes. He went and got out, and he continued to try to make music. He released a couple of more albums after that, but they never really truly hit as much as these two first albums of his. It wasn't until 2004 where his career kind of had like a resurgence of such, right? When a comedian, one of the greatest, if not the greatest comedian of all time, Dave Chappelle, puts him in one of his sketches. It's pretty much a narration of stories with Rick James in it. Eddie Murphy's brother, specifically Charlie Murphy, does this whole segment on Charlie Murphy getting all fucked up at one of their parties and him being all drunk and messing up their couch and him having to beat up Charlie Murphy and kicking him, which is cemented in comedy history because we all know, if you haven't seen the Dave Chappelle sketch with Rick James, I highly, highly, highly recommend you guys check that sketch out. It's so funny. Charlie Murphy describing this whole story of Rick James getting fucked up and like ruining things around them. R.I.P. to Charlie Murphy, by the way, which is also a great comedian, and he passed away. And after 2004, Rick James tries to go back on tour, and because there's people like he had a resurgence, right? Fortunately, it didn't last very long because Rick James died while he was on tour. He actually passed away on August 6th, 2004. So that was pretty much the end of Rick James. But again, it's still relevant. We're still jamming out to the songs. The albums are still holding up. This album still holds up to this day, which is something, it says a lot, about Rick James. I know a lot of people look at him like, oh, he was this crazy guy, but the man was extremely talented, and it shows because his music, like I said, still stands and is still as good as it was back then. That shows a lot about his musical inclinations, so yeah, I thought that was really neat. I highly recommend this album. I got this one for like $1 at some like record store. So if you ever get a chance, look up Rick James, and look him up on YouTube, all that type of stuff. He does have some great music. He did win 1 Grammy from composing a song which was I don't want to say it was remixed, but it was redone by MC Hammer. So which is You Can't Touch This, which also is a great MC Hammer. Wait, I should do an MC Hammer next one. But yeah, so yeah, I think that's about it, guys. That's all I wanted to talk about on this episode. Like I said, Rick James, check him out if you get a chance. And again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. What's your favorite Rick James song is what I want to know. And also, are you a super freak? If you're a super freak, let me know in the comments. But again, guys, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on Vinyl Snacks, baby. Peace out.